So as Fabian said, there's a lot of Bob Marley fans in here today, right? I was lucky enough to get to know Bob and travel with him on the 1979 Survival Tour, the last tour he made of California. I took that picture when I was with him. I spent 2 weeks on the road with him, and the happiest guy on the road with us was the bus driver, because at the end of each evening, he got to sweep up all the roaches. I've been doing this show for 31 years all over the world, from the bottom of the Grand Canyon, where the Havasupai Indians believe that Bob Marley is the reincarnation of Chief Red Cloud, returned to Earth as a black man to lead the red man forward to his freedom again, and to the outback in Australia. We did 6 shows a few years ago in Israel, and we played in a Rasta kibbutz in the middle of the Negev desert with guys with yarmulkes and dreadlocks, and all the latest 7 inches from Kingston in a red, gold, and green pub where Ross Hootie was at the controls. And then we went up the West Bank on this 4-lane highway, and we got to the end of it, and it comes down to 1 lane, and a gate comes across, and this really angry-looking 18-year-old Israeli soldier comes out to the van we're traveling in, and he's got a machine gun in his hand and his fingers on the trigger. And he looks in the van, and he sees that the dashboard is covered in red, gold, and green stickers. And he does this double take, and he goes, "Rastafari." I said, "Do you like Bob Marley?" And he looked at me as if I were crazy, and he says, "Of course, who doesn't?" So what we're going to do here for the next hour and a half is share some unreleased videos of Bob Marley and a whole heap of pictures, most of which have never been published before, including a bunch I took. And I'm going to tell you an abbreviated version of Bob Marley's life based on 42 years of research with him and his band and his friends. This is the part that the Marley documentary film made no mention of whatsoever. For the next 2 years, he was an abandoned child on the streets of Kingston between the ages of 5 and 7. Now, that can turn you very bad very quickly, or it can do what it did to Bob, which was give him an empathy for the rest of his life, for the sufferers, for the poor in Jamaica through an accident of birth who ended up living in the ghetto. And it informed the lyrics of his songs for many, many years after. Now, to identify yourself in Jamaica with a political party could be suicide. And as Bob said, never make a politician grant you a favor. They will only want to control you forever. So Bob went to the Prime Minister to complain, and it was agreed that Bob could do a show that would have no political overtones whatsoever and do it at the National Heroes Park Circle next to the National Stadium in downtown Kingston. And right after Bob agreed to do the show, Manly declared national elections to be held the next week. And it would appear as if he were co-opting Bob's support for his re-election. And Bob came under death threats immediately from the Jamaican Labour Party, and he was placed under guard 24 hours a day as he rehearsed for the show. The show was to take place Sunday night, December 5th, 1976, and on Friday, December 3rd, as he was rehearsing, 2 carloads of gunmen, 8 or 9 guys, broke into his compound, shot his wife in the head, shot Bob across the chest, and the bullet lodged in his arm, and shot another man, and shot his manager, Don Taylor, 5 times in the groin. They were all rushed to the hospital. Don Taylor was declared dead on arrival, and he told me years later the story of that night. He said, "I could hear everything going on around me, but I couldn't move, and I was on a gurney in the lobby of the hospital, and they pulled a sheet over my head. And a doctor came in and said to the nurse standing by the gurney, 'Who's that?' And she said, 'It's Don Taylor, Bob Marley's manager. He's dead.' And he wanted to scream, 'I'm still alive!' But he couldn't make his mouth move. And for some reason, the doctor pulled back the sheet and said, no, I think I see some signs of life. Let's get some blood into him. And they saved his life and sent him to Miami the next day, and he was operated on and the bullets removed, and he survived for many years after. Bob went into hiding, and during that time, several people came up to Chris Blackwell's home in Strawberry Hills above Kingston, where he was hiding out, and begged him not to do the concert. They said you would surely, they would come back and finish the job if you appear out in public, and don't do it. But he had a publicist with him from America named Jeff Walker. And Jeff said, Bob, if you don't go down, it will be just the same as if they had killed you. You've got to at least make an appearance. And Bob said, I'm not going down there without a machine gun. And Jeff said, Bob, your guitar is your machine gun. And something clicked. And at that same moment, his wife, who had a bullet lodged in her skull, fled the hospital and drove up to Strawberry Hill and jumped out of the car, and Bob said, come on, baby, we're going to do a show, and jumped in the police chief's car to go down to the site where there were now 80,000 people waiting to see if Bob Marley would come and play. And it was one of the most extraordinary moments, I think the most extraordinary moment in 20th century popular music history you're about to see. At the end of the show, after playing almost 90 minutes, he rolled up his sleeves and pointed to the bullet in the arm, opened his shirt, showed where the bullet came across his heart. If he'd been inhaling instead of exhaling, he would have been dead. And he sang a song he rarely sang in public called So Ja Say. And he reached out to the audience and he silenced this group of about 20 musicians playing behind him, and went a cappella in front of 80,000 people and made that gesture you often see in the documentaries where like he's holding the invisible grapefruit in front of him. And he said, if Puss and Dog can get together, what's wrong with you, my brothers? Why can't we love one another? A cappella. And to me, that's an incomparable moment. What could you possibly compare that to in rock and roll? Woodstock? It rained at Woodstock. People got mud on their shoes. But there he is standing with a bullet from the assassins lodged in his body. His wife is singing backup in a hospital gown with a bloody bandage on her head and a bullet in her skull. Pretty cool moment.